Grace and peace. Good morning, good afternoon, rather, to everybody. How are you? This is Dr. Jonathan Shaw. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to this conversation. This is going to be a necessary conversation. It's going to be a bold conversation that we're going to have with our guests today. I want to welcome everybody that's coming in on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us today. We want you to do us a favor so that there's a lot of interaction and engagement. Please ask questions in your comments and save those towards the end, but we also want you to like, love, and share. That's thumbs ups, that's hearts, and that's shares with your audience and your friends. Let them know that there's some great conversation going on, some healthy discussion going on, and we want to engage you with that. So make sure you're liking, you're loving, and you are sharing. Crown Ministries is coming on. So many other churches are coming on. Pastors are coming on. And we appreciate you all for joining us today in this very, very, very healthy conversation. Today happens to be my 27th ministry anniversary, where I'm celebrating 27 years in ministry. 27 years ago today, I preached my initial message called The Power of Your Testimony. Now I'm sitting in the house testifying from a computer on live stream. So look at how time has changed, and it has caused us to transition, and it has caused us to operate somewhat differently. We are celebrating today. I'm still celebrating today being in ministry. Grateful that my life has been impactful and has made significant marks in your life so that you can live a better life and that your life eventually pleases God. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all of your accolades and celebratory remarks that you've given me on social media. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all. I love you all. As the old song says, if I could help somebody along this way, then my living has not been in vain. So I pray that I've helped you in some way, shape, form, fashion, one way or another. Today, I want to gift you for my anniversary. I want to gift you with a gift that's, I believe it's going to be helpful to you and helpful certainly to your family, your friends, and loved ones. Number one, I want to do is I want to have a healthy conversation, and we're getting ready to engage in this conversation. As I see so many of you are coming in, so many of you are in the room now. This is good. You're doing wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming in and being with us. We're going to have some great, great, great discussion today. But I want to share with you and introduce our guest to you here so that we can jump right into this conversation. It is a necessary one and a needful one that we all need to have. Oftentimes in church, in our church settings, we talk about Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Rapha. And we say, call upon Jehovah Rapha, and we claim our healing and we claim our breakthrough. And all of that is good. It's wonderful, and it has its place. What in my observation, what I realized that a lot of people fail to embrace fully Jehovah Rapha, in that not only does he heal physically, but he also heals mentally and emotionally. He does heal in those aspects as well. We often limit it to a broken arm or broken leg or some infirmity or sickness and disease or infections even, and we call upon Jehovah Rapha. But what about your mind? What about the thoughts that go through your mind that are infirming you, that are affecting your life? That needs to be healed. The scriptures talks about casting your cares upon him, for he cares for you. There's a lot of concern with the Lord with our mind, and we need to pay close attention, and we need to pay more attention to our mind and our mental capacity and our mental health. Unfortunately, in too many communities, predominantly and even our Black and African American communities, we have ignored paying attention to the mind. Psychotherapy, psychology, family therapy, we've ignored it because we've put negative stigmas upon it. And therefore, we didn't engage it, we didn't participate with it, we didn't encourage it. But I believe that times are happening now, and especially during this pandemic, we're opening up to new conversation concerning mental health. And I think it's important now that we engage as fully, even in a connection to our faith. How does our faith fit in with all of this? And what we believe. And so I want to have this conversation around this topic concerning grief, and really understand how to have belief with grief. How do you really do that? And even in times like this with coronavirus, COVID-19, the global crisis, the pandemic that we're in. How do we do that? Many of you know my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, passed away, went home to be with the Lord. And one of our members' mother as well had transitioned, went on to be with the Lord. And you've heard the news, you've seen the numbers, and some of you probably experienced loved ones yourself who've passed away. But what do you do in those instances? At my sister-in-law's funeral, they only allowed 10 people. We couldn't hug and touch as we would normally do. With the size of both of our families, hundreds, if not 1,000 people would have been at this homegoing service. But that wasn't the scene when we did her homegoing service. Just a few people there. We actually had to turn a computer on to a Zoom so that people who could not attend could at least see it virtually. A funeral virtually, that's different. That's way different than we've ever expected. When we finally went to the burial, the cemetery did allow 5 people, 10 people there. Some cemeteries aren't allowing that, but they said that we had to stand at least 100 feet from the gravesite itself. So we stood on the curb where the cars were parked, and we did the committal from the curb. That's different. We've never seen that done before. We never had to do that before. What does that now mean for us as believers? What does that now mean for us as family members, loved ones? What does that mean for us as humans? For grief, anxiety, fear, pressure, feelings of being overwhelmed. How do we handle all that? So I want to jump right into this discussion, and I want to introduce my guest. I'm grateful for him. His name is James Ronald Chambers. He's a native of New York. He holds a bachelor's of science in community health and majoring in counseling and alcoholism and addiction counseling. He holds a Master of Science from Mercy College in psychology. He holds an additional Master's of Science from Iona College in marriage and family therapy. And he is currently in his first year as a doctoral student at Drew University in the Medical Health and Humanities program. He's also internationally certified in alcoholism and drug counselor and credentialed alcoholism substance abuse counselor as well from the state of New York. He's an alcohol and substance abuse. He offers alcohol and substance abuse services. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He is fortunate to be married to the Reverend Catherine Grant Chambers, the love of his life. He is a part of the clergy council of the 81st Police Precinct. He's also the founder of New Season Marriage and Family Therapy, which is a private practice located in Brooklyn, New York, where they address premarital counseling issues, PTSD, addictions and dependencies, family, couple, and individual therapy. He is also a prince, a bishop in the Lord's Church. He pastors that wonderful, wonderful church in Brooklyn, New York, St. Mary Church in Brooklyn, New York, the City of Hope. We certainly appreciate him for being with us today, and we honor him. Everybody, please welcome Bishop James R. Chambers. Today, we're going to call him prophetically Dr. Chambers. And we're glad that he is with us today to be a part of this engaging conversation. Just give us some words of greeting, Bishop Chambers.
Dr. Short, thank you so much for having me to be with you today. And certainly our conversation is necessary and it's needed, particularly with COVID-19 taking away the indignity and certainly the significance of being human in our mourning and in our grieving. I have lost, we stopped counting, but 23 of my friends and colleagues that I have worked with, fellowship with, sat on committees with, boards. I've lost them. I've lost, so far, we have a count of about 6 members in our own church. And I've had a couple of relatives touched by COVID-19 who, thank God, have recovered, but our lives have been changed forever, forever. So,
yeah, our lives have been changed forever. I posted something on social media the other day and say, just in case you haven't heard, Normal has died.
It has.
And we didn't get a chance to go to the funeral.
It has.
Normal is different. And so jumping right into this, Bishop, I want not to use terms loosely. I want to use terms that are very definitive to properly describe what we are discussing and talking about. Could you explain to us what is the difference between mourning and grieving? I know there is a difference, but what is the difference between mourning and grieving?
And hopefully mourning and grieving will go together, but at times people mourn and don't grieve, and people grieve and don't mourn.
Mm.
Mourning is a public expression of a loss. And so it's when you engage others, it's a showing that you have lost someone or something, and practices in our culture. We wear black, on our churches, we put bunting to show that there's been a change in the congregation, in the fellowship, the leadership has passed away. Certainly on any firehouse where an officer has fallen, a firefighter has fallen, or a police officer has fallen on a police station, there's outward expression that this house, this family, this community has suffered loss. It's visible, and often it is shared. It engages others. There is this expression of there's a behavior that comes with public mourning that my life has changed. I have lost something or someone that I love. Grieving is much more inward and personal, but grieving also has to be witnessed.
Mm.
So in other words, if I'm grieving, that I've suffered loss, and I'm working my way emotionally, sometimes physically, and for believers, it would also be spiritually through my loss. Now, it's not going to be a Bible study, but John 11 has a scenario where Mary and Martha had expectations that Jesus would show up in a timely fashion to heal their brother that they loved and Jesus' friend that he loved. He delayed his coming. And so the consequences of the delay was Lazarus died. And so you have expressions from two sisters that read quite differently if you read it in the context and in the environment and in the tone of its happening. Martha was the very assertive, aggressive, outspoken, of the sisters, and she meets Jesus. If you'd have been here, we wouldn't be doing this. You're late. You are late. This is an outward expression of mourning that, this could have been prevented had you got here on time.
Mm.
Mary's expression is a bit different, oh, I'm glad you're here, Jesus, and if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. So you have two different expressions of public mourning, and everyone mourns differently.
Wow.
I was house minister for two funeral homes in Brooklyn many years ago. And, some days you've had services all day, and it would be interesting to watch how each family and in their family culture would mourn the loss of a loved one. You have people that are rolling all across the floor, screaming and hollering, and then you have other people whose loss is so deep and so full, they can only sit still and cry. They are both mourning. They are mourning differently. Grieving, there is good grief, there is bad grief, and there's complicated grief.
Okay.
Good grief is when you accept the loss and you begin the process of accepting it, acknowledging it, and begin to work your way through it. You talk about it, you share it with others. The conversation keeps the memory of the person that you've lost alive.
Mm-hmm.
Bad grief is when you're angry with everybody and everything because it's somebody else's fault, and your expressions are volatile. Your words are very abusive. It's hurtful to you and hurtful to others around you. Complex grief is grief that doesn't seem to have a resolve. And I don't use the word closure because I think closure means something else to me. And I don't think you can ever come to closure on the loss of a loved one because you always have the memory of the loss. You live with it. You're surrounded by memories of it. But I think you come to a resolve
That's good. That's good. So it's not necessarily closure, it's a resolve. It's a
Yes.
final feeling that you have. Okay.
And it's acknowledgement that this happened,
Mhm,
it cannot be reversed.
mhm.
There really is nobody to blame. And we need to work towards living in memory, celebrating in memory and begin another page of life and not living in our loss, but living in the memory of it.
Mm,
Complicated grief is when a person just refuses to, you have a person in grief counseling for 8 years or 12 years, and that has happened, you're not able to accept the reality of the loss.
wow. Wow. That's good. That's really good. Good grief, bad grief, and complicated grief. Knowing where you are. I see these terms being so important. As we as believers, we always say power, life, and death is in the tongue. But certain words bring in certain feelings and emotions, have certain connotations, and it's
Yes.
important that the language that we use. It's very, very important to define and describe where we are, so we can know how to deal properly and healthily with those feelings and those emotions. So if you're getting something out of this, you're watching this Facebook Live, and you're getting something out of this, I want you to just type comments in this section, just what you got out of what Bishop Chambers is sharing with us. What did you get from that? What did you receive from that? Maybe even how that's helping you, if you wish and desire to put that up there. You can also write me in my inbox if you want to go further. We're going to be sharing Bishop's information with you later, because our conversation is not going to be enough for some of us. But we want to take this further. So we want to look into taking it further by sharing with Bishop a little bit further.
And
Let me
Jonathan,
also.
before we move from that, let me also say too, and this is my lived experience.
Mhm.
Um, Questions are asked, well, how long am I going to feel like this, and how long will this hurt, and how long will I cry? And it's 4 weeks now, and I should be better. Okay, it really does not work that way. You know, um, Everybody's time frame is different. Everybody's ability to process loss and grief is different. Um, when my mother passed away, I had people saying all sorts of things to me, and this is, my issue with church people at times. You know, um, you know, um, the cliches and all the things, and the people that were talking to me about my grief, their mothers were sitting across the street looking out the window.
How about that? Yeah.
And so, sometimes I am my authentic self. And so my response to that, I'll cry until I get ready to stop. Your mama is sitting across the street. You can see your mother. I can't see mine, So I'll cry, I'll cry until I decide not to. And you will know when you have cried your last tear over someone or something. You'll know when it's time for you to turn. So you don't let anybody else tell you how to gauge your grief or how to gauge your mourning, what that should be. Mourning and grief is also a process of healing from loss. So
Mm.
if you skip mourning, if you avoid grief, you will always have this hole that you're trying to fill, and you'll fill it with everything that will not help you to heal.
Wow.
So, there's no harm in you mourning. Let me say one other thing, and I said I wasn't going to make this a Bible study, so here we go. We talk about social distancing and physical distancing. The first expression that we have of social or physical distancing is at the crucifixion of Jesus. You have his mother, her sisters, and the women that followed him and the men that followed him. He's hanging on the cross, and from a distance, they watch him become a mangled clump of flesh with no ability to say, Jesus, we're here. We love you. We're going to hold you so the pain won't be so bad. We're going to touch you. We're going to put a compress on you so that, the pain, we can ease your pain. They had to stand at a distance
Wow.
and watch the suffering.
Wow. Wow.
And we are living in this is COVID-19 is a Good Friday experience for all of us. And not all Good Fridays end in a few hours. Sometimes they last a few days, a few weeks, and a few months.
Woo.
Where you have to live in the pain, live in the suffering, And no, at that moment, you cannot ease it and you can't find comfort. You have to live through it. And although you're living in a Good Friday, Sunday is coming.
Mhm.
But the other thing that we also need to know too, not all resurrections happen in 3 days.
Wow. Live through it.
Yes.
I think oftentimes I've seen people attempt to escape or skip over. Some profess that they're super, human, and they have super strong emotions, and they're being strong. Be strong, which is a term
I don't
I
understand.
dislike strongly.
I don't know what that
Be
is.
strong. For what? Why do I have to?
Yeah.
And for who?
Yeah.
But to go through it and to realize that it is a process. It does not occur overnight. It's not going to change overnight, especially someone that's been in your life all your life, or 20 years, 10 years of your life, and has impacted your life. You're not going to just get over that emotionally in 3 days. It is a process. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very important. So then with social distancing, we look at Jesus, and the Marys and John down there, social distancing from Jesus at the cross. We're now quarantined because COVID-19, and we have to practice social distancing 6 feet apart. What are some of the healthy ways then that we could grieve and mourn now? What are some of the things that we could possibly employ?
And I think we're discovering that now because
Okay.
we're in a place now where we've never been before.
Hmm.
You know, our people as a culture, you start traveling up from wherever you from, because Aunt May died. We got to go. All of us have to
Hmm.
go. We got to get there, pack out the church, friends, family, and of course, whenever we gather together, food is a part of our being together. We don't come together and don't eat. That's a sin.
Amen.
you know, somebody got a chicken leg somewhere. Um, there is the touching and hugging and the embracing and the exchanging of conversations, which has been prohibited
Hmm.
at this point in time. We can't do that. And so now we have to learn the art of conversation.
Wow.
Also, and more so than the art of conversation, the art of listening, and listening without judgment or presuming that you know what the person is going to say or what they mean. Just listen.
Mm.
And and no judgment, no assumptions means people are going to say what they're feeling. And when you start to speak from your feelings, the language isn't always appropriate. It is always nice. It isn't always, pretty and laced up. It's as ugly as the pain that you're feeling, you know. And if you're going to be a comfort to them that mourn, you have to be willing to step into that process and into that pain. And it's dirty work. You got to be willing to go into the dark and dusty and dirty places that feelings will take you. You know, um, again, when people that I loved have passed away and we prayed for them and they died, my conversation with the Lord was very candid, and thank God he's not offended by my disappointment with him. This is not what I told you to do.
Right, right. This is
you
not
know
what I prayed for.
the prayer meetings that we had, this is not the outcome that was supposed to happen. And here's what we're learning now.
Mhm.
Many of us we're learning now that when we pray, our prayers can't be one directional, meaning, Lord, you do this, you do that, you do the other, because we're believing you, because you can. And, we're telling God all about himself, and this is why he should do what we're asking. Here we go. Jesus does this wonderful thing in the Garden of Gethsemane. Let this pass from me.
Wow. Wow.
You can stop this before this gets started. Can this be done some other way? Is there some method of doing this? But here's what he says, and this is what COVID-19 is going to bring many of us prayer warriors to. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. And what that also means is we're asking for healing on earth. It's very likely you're going to provide healing in heaven.
Mm.
So help us to be where you're working and accept the work you do.
Wow. Help us to be working.
Help us to be where you're working
Help us to be where you're working. Mhm.
and accept the work that you're doing.
And accept the work that you're doing. Wow. That's healthy. That's
But it's also hard.
it's hard.
Hard because most of our prayers, whether we confess it or not, is very selfish. We want to hold on to loved ones because we love them that much. But the selfish part about our praying, and holding on to loved ones is that we're holding people in bodies that don't work anymore.
Wow. Wow.
And that's a miserable place to be when a mind and a spirit and a soul is trapped in a body that is no longer functioning, which in part says to us we don't always believe what we preach because we preach about being changed. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and we keep praying for healing because we want you to be present with us and not with the Lord. So this process of mourning and grieving, and learning how to grieve is also a process of knowing when to let go. Conversations that families don't have, that's needed. That should I take very ill, and it's determined that I will not return to a quality of life. This is what I don't want done. And this is what I would like to have done. So if a relative or a loved one has expressed to you that they do not want, supportive means to keep them alive and breathing and functioning, there comes that point in time where you have to accept that and be willing to release them from mechanical life support that they just don't want. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. So it's really embracing very strongly talk therapy. It's forcing us to talk and have a conversation. We can't hug. We can't sit around eating that chicken, and Auntie's famous macaroni and cheese. We can't do that, but we can have a conversation, and it's forcing people who don't ordinarily do that to now you have to do that if you want to grieve and mourn effectively and endure that process. It's forcing you to talk. So that whole idea of holding it inside.
No.
Yeah.
No. So here we go. I lived in the projects. So and I lived in Albany projects. So Yeah. So and some folk who are familiar with those houses, most of the closets in the bedrooms and every other room were covered with curtains. There was one closet with a door, and that closet was in the living room. So we didn't have any storage. So, when company was coming, you get stuff up to make like you don't live like you live, so that closet, we would pack all the stuff into it, just keep putting stuff into it. And, when it had as much as it could take, what we would do is, put more stuff in it. And then we would back up against the door, and wait for the click, and then we know it's closed. So here's the problem with that. It can only hold so much for so long.
Wow.
Even the locks have to give way to the pressure. And what would happen is we'd have a living room full of company, and that closet would come open by itself. And what would happen is the stuff you don't want nobody to see is the stuff that would come out first. It's the same way with our emotions.
Yeah.
You can only pack it down so far and so deep for so long. And when you keep packing in, the pressure becomes so much that you need an emotional release, and sometimes it will happen in places and at times and with folk that you just don't want them to see what you've been hiding,
Wow.
what you've been holding. So there needs to be a release. There needs to be a release. I know we tell people, worship is therapeutic. You need to come to church and just worship the Lord. Um, that's also a way of hiding from what you really need to deal with.
Wow.
So what our services become is 3 hours of escape from our reality, when in fact worship should take you into your reality and allow you to be healed while you're in the presence of the Lord. But you can't be healed from what you don't own.
Ah, whoa, wait, Bishop, wait, hold on. He said he wasn't gonna make this Bible study, but y'all, he's shooting straight from the pulpit. Wait, hold on. Worship and church service being a mechanism to hide your emotions and what you're really feeling, and we hide in the choir stand, and we hide in the pulpits, and we hide on the auxiliaries and the boards, and behind our robes and our garments and our vestments, and we hide in our worship with our tongues and our songs. We hide, and it's really an escapism. It's escapism to get away from the reality when it's supposed to bring you into the reality.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I'm from old church, where the church mothers did, pastors didn't have to do a whole lot because the church mothers got people straight.
Mhm.
What they would say is they could tell that the sound of your praise could tell them where you were. So if you were struggling and stressing and you were trying to praise, they would say that's a strained praise. That person is struggling.
Mm.
When a person was delivered, that praise had a different kind of sound. It really had a different kind of sound. So often what is perceived by, some leadership and worshipers these days as, you just praising your way through, that's somebody that is really struggling.
Mm.
And the sound tells you this is a struggle worship, this is a struggle praise. And there needs to be a release, there needs to be and it's not a judgment,
Right.
it's what you're hearing and what you're seeing. And sometimes those church mothers would pay attention to what they were seeing and hearing, and they would come and lay hands on you and speak to what it was that you were struggling with.
Yeah.
We become an intelligent group of worshipers, and sometimes we're so smart that we miss what's happening in front of us. And so many times the people that are struggling, we give it a terminology when we really need to be having a conversation. What's happening? And when they start with, I'm blessed of the Lord and highly favored. Okay, good. Now tell me what's happening. Really, what's going on?
Wow. The disguise. So I think those who are around individuals who are grieving and who are mourning, that you have a strong sense of discernment, that you can decipher and hear it and discern. I hear you, but I hear you.
Yeah.
And I see you, but I see you.
Yes.
And to be able to help them navigate that process. No judgment. It's not judgment. It's I'm not going to encourage you to ignore your reality. I'm not going to be an enabler to you. I want you to healthy grieve. And doesn't mean that you have to roll over the floor and beat the floor and cry, have a temper tantrum either. It just means you have to go through this process. You have to vent. If not, you're like that closet when the guests are over sipping their tea, and now you got baseball bats and all kinds of stuff falling all over you. And the guests didn't do it. They're like, where did all this come from?
I didn't know you did that.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. Some individuals, and you came to our church and you had this session with us. We have been in relationship with Bishop for quite some time, but dealing with anxiety levels, coping with this season, because as I hear you saying, grief and mourning is not just the loss of things, or rather people, but also things. And that we've noticed, I've read statistics yesterday that even the suicide rate is increasing in this time. Individuals who are struggling with anxiety and feelings of being overwhelmed, how do they cope in this time? What's the coping?
And certainly part of it is definitely talking.
Hmm.
Some of the people that I've seen and had conversations with, who have anxiety, they feel like I've got the virus, you know, I'm having a heart attack, you know, I'm gonna die any minute now. Okay, so let's talk through this. Um, do you have a fever? Um, the symptomology that's associated with COVID-19. You know, um, someone who always had a heart attack. So, how many heart attacks have you had? you know, and you've not been to the emergency room. You've not been. Okay, so apparently, what you think is a heart attack is not, and we need to talk about, what brings you to this feeling, what brings you to this place, what makes you feel that you're doing this. And so, um, I would tell anybody that's feeling anxious, certainly prayer. If you are, a spiritual person, believer, you know, prayer and prayer is a conversation with God. It goes two ways. There's somebody talking, there's somebody's listening. Certainly you refer to scriptures that will help you to, calm you, and bring you back into the space that you're in. Mindfulness practices are very helpful. I have few people that I, tell them, when you're feeling that way, you do this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, till you get to the last, your last finger. And if you got to go to the other hand, go to that one. You got to use your toes. You do that until you find your breathing coming back to normal rhythm, and what you're feeling has passed from you. You have to work through this
Right.
anxiety, depression, and all of the emotional seesaws that you experience. You have to work your way through that and developing skills, tools, to deal with feeling anxious and with feeling depressed. You have to work your way through that. You have to get yourself into something, or with someone who will walk with you through those feelings and through those experiences. I've Our prayer over the past few weeks have been intentional.
Hmm.
um, we have laid out very specific things to be addressed in the prayers, and we've asked our intercessors to pull away from a lot of the emotion, to draw back from how we get very boisterous, because people need to feel a calm, a confidence, and a comfort in
Mm.
your prayer. you know
A calm,
a
a
comfort.
confidence, and a comfort.
Yes, in the prayer that's being offered, that you are actually saying to God what they are feeling and experiencing, and that you are speaking to God on their behalf. And it sounds as though, it appears as though, it feels as though that you are communicating accurately
Hmm.
before the Lord.
Wow.
So when you're feeling anxious, there's no harm in saying, Lord, I'm in the zone right now. Yeah, I'm going there. I need you. I need you to help me. I had a meeting with our church, and it was separate from all of the other things that we're doing. It was on Zoom, and I acknowledged where I am in all of this. I am afraid. I know what those other people said. I heard what they said. I heard what they said. I am afraid. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Wow.
I read about the Spanish flu from 1918. I wasn't there. You know, I look like it, but I wasn't there. You know, Ebola, um, um, all of those others, you know, and many of those things were far removed from us.
Mhm.
For the first time, the whole world is on the sick and shut in and prayer list. The whole world. The whole world is on the bereavement list. All of us. I I am afraid of what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and what I'm feeling.
Mhm.
Now, I know folk will pull out their Bible verses and they will tell me, you're not
God is
supposed,
not giving us a spirit of fear.
and I have it. I I have it. Okay. So now, what am I supposed to do with that? And I think too, if you go back and read that whole passage, it's a conversation between Paul and Timothy. So it really doesn't have anything to do with us. It's Paul and Timothy. And and Timothy is going to an assignment where it's a generational gap between him and the people that he's going to pastor. So he's got reservations about this. He's concerned about this. And Paul says to him, you have power, you have love, you have a sound mind. Those things you possess, God gave you those things to do that job. This fear that you're feeling didn't come from God. This is of your own creation. You can conquer it because you have power, love, and most importantly, a sound mind to do this job. So arrest your fear and go do the job.
Wow.
Now, what I think, and what I have been saying to the people in my circles and my congregation is John 14. Let not your heart be troubled. So in my saying to the people that I'm talking to, I am afraid, I also can say, but I have a place for my being afraid.
Mm.
I am afraid, but I don't have to be. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. And
Wow.
that's where my feelings are real. They're not factual. Feelings aren't facts, but feelings are real. And I have a place where I can feel and know that God feels what I feels, and he has a remedy for what I'm feeling. There was a verse in Numbers 1:7, and I guess I shouldn't have said what I said because I'm doing what I said I would.
I think that's good what you just said. And somebody needs to write that down. Feelings aren't fact, but
But
they
they
are
are
real.
real. They are
They
real.
aren't fact, but they are real. That's good.
Nahum 1:7, and I this verse, Pastor Rosie Wallace from out of Philadelphia, her mother used to sing Nahum 1:7. And till this day, I can't tell you the melody and how that song went. I can't tell you, but I remember the verse because it has pulled me out of many places. And it reads, the Lord is good. He's a strong hold in the day of trouble.
Mm.
He knows them that trust him. So you don't have to be afraid to be afraid
Mm.
because the Lord is good.
Mhm.
He's a strong hold. He will hold you.
Yeah.
Most of us really should have snapped, crackled, and popped by now, but we haven't gone across the edge yet because he's a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows them who trust him. And in your worst moments, there's a piece of us that says, I don't understand any of this. This is not the way this should have turned out, but I trust you. I trust you to know what you're doing.
Wow. Wow. I trust you. I'm afraid, but I don't have to be. But I
Yeah.
trust you that you know what you're doing because he's a stronghold. That's good. That's healthy.
And the first message at the resurrection was fear not. So it didn't say you're not going to fear. He says, I know what you're feeling.
Mhm.
I know what you're feeling. And the Greek and Hebrew folk can go do the translation there because what it means is you're fearing, stop.
Mm.
The emotion is already, the feeling is already in motion.
Mhm.
Stop,
Mhm.
stop.
So, we're going to move further into this last question, but I think that's really healthy what you're saying, because what then the scripture suggests to us is not what we've always interpreted. We interpreted that fear will not come near me. It won't touch me. It won't come around me. What the scripture is saying through many examples that you're giving right now is, no, you're going to be afraid. You're going to get fear. The scripture is saying to get rid of what you have. And in order to get rid of it, you got to acknowledge you got it. So you have fear. You are afraid. Now get rid of it. And this is how to do it. Don't allow your heart to be troubled. And so we preach this Scott's Garden message that it doesn't rain on us. People in our family don't die. We don't get sick, and it's the blood is around us. When we all can testify that that's not true. All of that happens to us.
I grew up in a never died church, and all those folk are dead.
Very true.
All of them are gone.
Yeah. And so it happens. So Bishop, take us into this last question.
Well, can we go to something else before you?
Sure.
As part of what we had talked, you and I had talked about, what should churches be expecting?
Yeah.
When when this is over.
Well, that's where I was going. They want to get back to normal. They want to get back to normal, and
normal has
back
gone.
to church to give them a praise because we made it.
And this is where I get a little emotional, because I've had these friends that passed away, and then I have friends who are bearing their members, and sometimes they're bearing several members in one family. And I think we're skipping the battle, the recovery, and marching into triumph and victory. Here in New York, we've been told May 15th will be the start date when outdoors will open up again.
That's what we're told.
What does that mean, and what is that going to look like? The world's going to open up again and everybody? I don't think so. And our governor has done an excellent job, and being, cognizant of his responsibility to keep us safe. People, there's the first Sunday back, we're going to dance. Well, in light of what we're living now, let's see what the first Sunday back will be, because the first Sunday many of our churches open up, our members aren't coming back the first Sunday we open up. You go, and let's see how you make out. I think it'll be a long time before you hear preachers say in a congregation, touch your neighbor, because it's like, they said you can come back out. I don't know, if I'm ready for all of that. Those who will be going back to church will be going back to churches that will have empty pulpits. That's going to also bring to bear the reality, bring to witness the reality of what has happened these almost 90-something days. Those pastors who will go back to church will find that the congregation you had the third Sunday in March is not what you have now, whenever it is that you go back.
Yeah.
For some pastors, COVID-19 will be the way out, because they have been exhausted and tired for a very, very long time.
Wow.
And will have pretty much nothing to go back to, or very little to go back to, and will not have in them this motivation and drive and press to start all over again, because this has in many ways impacted them, their family, their ministry, and every aspect of their life. Do I want to go back into this again and start all over again? So many will not come back. The recovery from this is also something that needs to be considered, because I've got 23 friends that passed away, and this is not including those in my church and other people, where I stopped counting. We couldn't have funerals. And so now we have this onslaught of memorial services, because families and friends and communities need a resolve.
Wow.
We need to come to, when will it be safe for us to come together? We don't know. But in order for us to go to the next phase of what we are experiencing, we need to mourn. We need the community to come together. Our grieving needs to be witnessed.
Hmm.
We need to do this. And in some churches, there will be a memorial service maybe every week. You know, everybody needs their own individual space to feel and say what they need to say and feel about the person that they love, or the persons, that they love. It's going to be very difficult to shout when people are crying and grieving, and the reality of their losses, have come to bear. So, Bible tells us to mourn with them that mourn, and grieve with them that grieve, and that's not going to be easy to dance through just
Yeah.
yet. And so the recovery, and the resolve that needs to happen, and it may not, not all resurrections are in 3 days. And first of all, for us to know that there is a resurrection, you got to come out the tomb.
Right.
So the coming out the tomb is going to be a process in itself.
Yeah.
Before we can say that we have been truly resurrected. How long will this take? I don't know, because it possibly will take us over into 2021. And we can follow the Lord in the light, but can we follow him in the dark?
Mm.
And for a little while, we may have to walk with the Lord in the dark until he brings us to the light. Can you trust him? Can you follow him in the dark? And we're going to if there's going to be a resurrection, you're going to have to follow him. When I have to get up at night, I don't turn lights on because I want to stay asleep. So I scale the walls because I know, I've already mapped it out in the light. I know where everything is. But if I'm staying in a hotel, or some unfamiliar place, and I get up in the middle of the night, I can't trust scaling the walls because this is new territory for me, and even though I saw it in the light, I didn't study it well enough to know how to negotiate my way in the dark to get where I need to get to do whatever it is that I need to do. This is one of those moments where we've never been in this kind of dark, and we are not familiar, with which way to go and how to negotiate our way through the dark. So we have to trust God truly where we can't trace him.
Wow. This is a new kind of dark.
It is. It is. Can you follow the Lord, and can you trust God in the darkness that you cannot control?
Wow.
No.
And we can't control it.
No. So, a quick finish and a quick ending may not be in sight. That was the problem with Jeremiah's prophecies. We want this to be over. Jeremiah kept saying, it's not going, not like that. So you really need to trust God, because, it's not going to end that quickly. And even when it ends, there are the residual effects of what has happened these many days. Then there's going to be this issue of survivor's guilt, depression, unresolved grief, and the suicide rate will escalate. And suicide is one of those things that, there's a hairline between suicide and homicide. It's just that close. And people have sat in rooms and smiled and laughed and walked into another room and taken their own lives. And I've heard of cases where people sat in the same room where the laughter and conversations were going on, and took their life right in front of everyone else that was in the room. These are real issues that needs to be addressed, and the church needs to be very cognizant of the impact that this pandemic has had on our members.
Wow.
On our leaders, And I would encourage pastors to please make connections, professional connections, with people that can work in a scope that you may not be trained in, to help you, with this. And then many of our pastors, will have to work to resolving their own grief and losses, through this, So what's church going to look like? Um, when we have experienced a full resurrection, it should never look like it did before this.
So it won't look the same.
It cannot.
It cannot.
And if it does, it's going to be to our own detriment.
Wow. If it looks the same, it'll be to our detriment. Wow.
It's like a drug addict going back to the drug that almost took you out. And addicts will test it. I feel better. I got one more run. I got one more run. I got one more. And there's a saying in the recovery community, the next one could be your last one.
Wow.
So going back to old behaviors, looking for things to be normal could be to our detriment. And I mentioned in a sermon recently the term that we're using, new normal. And I said, it is my prayer that we will be more new than normal.
That we become more new than we are normal. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Wow. If you're on Facebook Live and this is helping you, I want you to write in the comments right now, this is helping me. This is helping me. It's just an acknowledgement that you're hearing what's being said, you're hearing what's being spoken, and you're getting a sense of the direction that your process needs to go in. Whatever process you're in, whether you lost a person or a thing, a job, whatever that might be, that you are processing it. And if that's the case, just type, this is helping me. I want to really, there's no way that we can cover all that needs to be covered in this moment in time, but I want to make Bishop Chambers, his experience, his expertise, and his gift really available to you. Some of you need to continue in conversation. You need to continue to have a conversation. And let me just say this, as a pastor, and Bishop Chambers is a pastor as well, your pastor doesn't always have this experience and knowledge. No, even as pastors, we have to know how far we can go with what we have been gifted by God with. And there are some things that you need to embrace a professional who is credentialed and trained in those areas. When my heart is sick, I call a cardiologist. When my foot is hurting, I call a podiatrist. When my teeth hurt, I call a dentist. When my mind hurt, who do I call? You need to call someone who is professional. You don't go to your pastor. Well, maybe they did before. You don't go to your pastor when your teeth hurts. You go to the dentist. So why do we do with the mind and we allow ourselves to wear out our pastors? And then sometimes us as pastors, we're too prideful to say, I don't know the answers to this or how to help you through this. So we in the dark with you trying to navigate, and all of us are bumping into things. How can the blind lead the blind except they both fall into a ditch? I want you to consider Bishop Chambers, and I want you to invite him to you and you to him, whereas he can help you work through this. He's available. I'm sure he's doing virtual services right now. Bishop Chambers, just give us some information. I want y'all to type this in the comments so everybody can have it. Give us some information of how we could best get in contact with you if we want to take this conversation further.
The best way now is through email, and the two email addresses, J Chambers LMFT, that's JCHAM, B as in boy, ERS LMFT @gmail.com. The other is New Seasons, NUSEASONS Therapy, one word, New Seasons Therapy, NUSEASONS @gmail.com.
Okay, so those two.
Our office, the office is closed now. So, some people have the phone number to the line there, and there's no one there because we're following the precautions to retrieve those messages, but the emails will be responded to.
So follow up with those emails, and I'm sure, Bishop, you're doing virtual talk therapy.
We all are now.
We all are. Okay.
No therapist has an office open right now.
Okay, good. So contact him. He can reach you right where you are and communicate with you. reach out if you want to take this conversation further. Now you're going to have to compensate him. This is what he does professionally, but he can help you navigate through that as well. Let's at minimum, let's reach out. Let's reach out and let's find out what we can do in this process to figure out how can I endure this season. And he's licensed and credentialed to do so. And I'm really, really appreciative for him. We give him the clapping hand emojis on our social media for all of his contribution today and for really helping us, enlightening us, and helping us to cope with this grief and what we should do with it and how we should get through it. As I mentioned to you before, today is also my 27th ministry anniversary, and I want to gift something to you. I want everyone that's online now, I want to gift something to you in light of this conversation, COVID-19. I too have seen loved ones, family, friends who've passed away, who's transitioned. One of the hardest things to do is to mourn and have a funeral service and have some sense of resolve in this season. But another additional overwhelming feeling is to not know what to do. What does our loved one want? Where should their possessions go? What should we do with it? What's the bank account number? Where are the insurance papers? All of those things are matters that add on to the pressure that this time is already bringing to us. So I want to gift something to you. I want to make available to each and every one of you, especially those who don't have anything in place at the moment. I want to gift a free gift that is valued at $25. I used to sell this, but now I'm making it available for free. It's a last will and testament. A last will and testament. It's what to do with you when you're gone, what to do with your possessions, what to do with your inheritances, what to do with your money, your bank, your clothes, your furniture. What should we do? It's a full 12-page booklet of funeral requests, your background, your history, a document locator. You know, Big Mama always kept documents in this little strong box somewhere that no one know where it is. Neither do we know how to find it. You need to write that down and have it documented. Where's your insurance? What insurance company do you have? What's the policy number? All of that information is held inside of this one booklet, Last Will and Testament. I'm making it available for you. I want to gift it to you. It's my anniversary gift to you so that your family knows what are your final wishes. Even when COVID-19 is over and we can have somewhat of a funeral homegoing service like we used to have, what should we do? Who should speak? What scriptures you want read? What song you want sung? Maybe you don't want somebody to talk at your funeral. That's noted right here inside of this booklet. I need you to get your hands on it. I used to sell this available for $25, but I'm going to make it available to you. Dr. Shaw, how can I get it? This is how you get it. Take your cell phone and simply text JIS27. JIS27. You're going to text that to the number 71441. It's going to tell you to text. It's going to give you some information, but you text JIS27 to 71441. Now, I want you to give me something for my anniversary too. So it's going to also prompt you to ask you to subscribe to some of my social media pages and platforms so that I can continue to stay in contact with you and I can relate with you and we can have conversation. I also have a podcast. It's going to ask you to subscribe to the podcast. It's also going to ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And lastly, it's going to ask you to subscribe to my Facebook public page. When you just like those pages, subscribe to those pages, and just respond done. When you've done all three of those, it's going to send you a link with this booklet. All you have to do is download it on any device, email it to yourself. Just text JIS27, one word, JIS27, to the number 71441. And you'll be able to follow those prompts. Text done when you've completed those subscriptions, and you will get this freely downloadable to you. You can email it to yourself. You can email it to family members. I know some of your family members need it and want it. Do that today. It's my gift to you. It's also going to be your gift to your family because they're going to know what they should do with you or after you. You could be rejoicing and going on with Jesus and having a great time with the golden streets and the pearly gates. But we're mourning and we're grieving. Don't let your family and friends mourn twice because you didn't set in motion what should happen. Proverbs 13:22 says, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. If you're wise, you will get this booklet. And don't just get it, fill it out, download it, and complete it so we know what we should do with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bishop Chambers, some final words would you like to give us today?
The phrase that I've been using with our fellowship, each time we meet, is walk in faith, live in hope, resist the fear. Walk in faith.
Yes.
Live in hope, resist the fear.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bishop Chambers. That was great. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. He's great. Remember, reach out to him, send him those emails. Let's begin to process through this grief so that we can be healthy. I love you and I appreciate you. I wish you all well. My final statements have been to everybody is this: stay safe, stay sanitized, and stay inside. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bishop Chambers, again. I wish you all well. Have a great evening, you guys, and we will be talking again soon. Bye-bye for now.